Coldwater, Ohio, population just over 4,000. A quiet farming town where everyone knows everyone. A place where doors stay unlocked and neighbors wave from their porches. But on October 12, 1997, that peace was shattered by a single, terrified 911 call that would haunt this town for decades. Dispatcher log, 2:37 a.m. Coldwater County 911. What's your emergency? Faint static. Then a woman's voice trembling. He's in the walls. He's watching me. Please. Scream. Line disconnects. When officers arrive 12 minutes later, the address, 73 Cedar Hollow Road, was already infamous. Locals called it the Hollow House, a crumbling two-story structure that had sat empty since the early 80s. But what they found that night was anything but empty. Police broke through the chained front door. The smell hit first: damp wood, rot, and something metallic beneath it. The living room was stripped bare, except for the walls, covered in newspaper clippings about missing persons, all from surrounding counties. Pinned beneath each photo was a piece of torn fabric and a date. At the center of the floor lay a trapdoor, half hidden under a rug. When officers pried it open, the air that rose from below was cold, unnaturally cold. The narrow steps led to a basement that hadn't seen daylight in years. The walls were marked with hundreds of tally marks, carved deep into the concrete. In the corner sat an old rocking chair, still moving back and forth. And beside it, a camcorder still recording. The footage recovered from the scene was analyzed by the Coldwater Police Department and later turned over to the FBI. What they found on the tapes disturbed even veteran agents. Each tape featured one of the 5 missing individuals identified from the wall upstairs. They appeared disoriented, pale, and terrified, forced to sit before the camera. A man's voice could be heard behind it. Smile for the camera. You live as long as you smile. Each recording ended the same way. Violent shaking, screams, then static. But in one frame, a reflection appeared in a cracked mirror. A man's face, partially obscured, expressionless, watching his victims through the lens. Facial reconstruction identified him as Raymond Holt, a Coldwater resident who had vanished in 1984. Investigators soon uncovered a chilling detail. Holt had been declared legally dead in 1985 after his car was found abandoned by a quarry. His death certificate was signed and verified. His grave had been visited every year by his surviving sister. But when agents exhumed the coffin from Coldwater Cemetery, it was empty. 3 nights after the tapes were discovered, Cedar Hollow House went up in flames. No accelerant was found. No lightning. No trespassers seen. Witnesses from nearby farms swore they saw movement in the upstairs window, a figure watching as the fire devoured the house. When investigators combed through the ashes the next morning, they found something half buried in soot. A charred Polaroid, the image barely visible. It showed a man smiling, too wide, and behind him, a faint outline of another face peering from the shadows. The remains of Cedar Hollow House were bulldozed in 2002. The land was fenced off, condemned, but strange reports continued. Hikers claimed to hear laughter echoing through the trees. Truckers passing at night said their radios would suddenly switch stations, tuning to static, and a man's voice would whisper, "Smile for the camera." Even today, the Coldwater Sheriff's Department keeps the case open. No one knows how Holt could have returned, or if he ever truly left. What's certain is that something evil walked those halls. Something that waited for the lights to go out, the cameras to roll, and the world to forget. And on quiet October nights, when the wind runs cold through Cedar Hollow Road, sometimes people still see the house standing there, still hear the rocking chair creak, still feel eyes watching through the walls. In the aftermath of the Cedar Hollow fire, Investigators believed the nightmare had finally ended, but they were wrong, because as the ashes cooled, a new trail of evidence emerged, one that would lead detectives deep into the past, into the life of Raymond Holt. Raymond Holt was born in 1946 in Coldwater, Ohio. By all accounts, he lived an ordinary life. He worked as a handyman, repaired farm machinery, and spent weekends fishing at Green Creek. Neighbors described him as quiet, polite, maybe a little odd. He kept mostly to himself, especially after his wife, Linda, vanished in the spring of 1983. Police suspected foul play, but Holt had an airtight alibi. He was working night shifts at the grain mill. With no body and no evidence, Linda Holt was officially listed as missing, presumed dead. A year later, Raymond vanished too. His truck was found near a quarry, engine running, driver's door open. No sign of struggle. Only a single object was left behind, a Super 8 film camera, still loaded with half a reel. Authorities assumed suicide. The case went cold. Following the 1997 fire, the FBI task force re-examined Holt's old property records. That's when they made a disturbing discovery. Cedar Hollow House was never officially sold. The deed still listed Raymond Holt as the owner. And beneath the rubble, agents found the entrance to a sealed crawl space, untouched by the flames. Inside were 2 metal trunks wrapped in oilcloth. When they opened them, investigators found dozens of videotapes, neatly labeled. Guest number 1, guest number 2, Linda rehearsal. Each was meticulously cataloged by date and hour, spanning over a decade. The first tape was recorded in 1983. On the recovered footage, Holt's wife, Linda, appeared alive, bound, trembling, her face illuminated by a single light bulb. She pleads softly, voice cracking, "Ray, please, this isn't you." Off-screen, his voice answers, calm, almost tender, "Smile for the camera, darling. You live as long as you smile." This was the origin of Holt's ritual, the phrase that would echo across every future tape. Experts later suggested Holt suffered from dissociative psychosis, his grief warping into delusion. He began believing that through the camera, he could preserve life, that if a person kept smiling, they'd never truly die. But when the smile faded, his obsession took a darker turn. During a forensic sweep of the crawl space, detectives uncovered blueprints, hand-drawn plans for hidden crawl tunnels, vents, and viewing slits built into the walls of the Cedar Hollow home. Holt had redesigned the entire house into a maze, a structure that allowed him to move unseen between rooms. Investigators later found scratches on the inside of those walls, desperate marks from people trying to claw their way out. The architecture was so complex that even trained officers got lost during the initial walkthroughs. It wasn't just a house, it was a stage. One tape stood out from the collection. It was labeled simply, "Guest number 13." Unlike the others, this one wasn't filmed in the basement. It was outside, near a lake. The footage showed a boy, no older than 9, standing silently beside Holt. He wasn't bound. He wasn't afraid. He was smiling. When forensic analysts enhanced the image, they noticed something chilling. The boy bore a resemblance to Linda Holt. A DNA test later confirmed what investigators feared. The boy was Raymond and Linda's son, Caleb Holt, who had supposedly died in a car crash at age 4. There was no record of his burial, no accident report, nothing. As federal agents expanded their investigation, they began uncovering an unsettling pattern. Coldwater had reported 11 disappearances between 1983 and 1996, all within a 5-mile radius of Cedar Hollow Road. No bodies were ever found, no suspects charged, but in the recovered tapes, several victims mentioned the same phrase, "the man in the walls." Some described hearing footsteps at night, whispers through vents, even laughter coming from beneath the floorboards. When the FBI reconstructed Holt's movements, they realized he had built more than one structure. Blueprints found in his toolbox hinted at 2 additional hidden properties, both located near abandoned farmland on the edge of town. Only one has ever been found. The second remains missing. The last tape in Holt's collection, dated October 8, 1997, was recorded just 4 days before the 911 call. It begins with the camera facing an empty chair. Footsteps echo. Then Holt appears, older, thinner, eyes hollow. He stares into the lens and whispers, "They're still smiling." He tilts the camera toward the corner of the room, where faint figures can be seen. Shapes, faces, movement in the dark. Then the screen cuts to static. To this day, the Coldwater case files remain partially sealed under federal order. The FBI lists Holt as presumed deceased, but no remains were ever confirmed. Every Halloween, locals report strange flickers of light where the house once stood. And sometimes, drivers passing by swear they can see a man with a camera standing on the roadside, watching. No one stops anymore, because in Coldwater, people remember the whisper that haunted their town. Smile for the camera. You live as long as you smile. For nearly 20 years, the Coldwater case remained dormant. The house was gone, the tapes locked away, and the town tried to forget. But in 2016, a forensic re-examination of the surviving videotapes revealed something investigators had missed. A trace barely visible in the reflection of a mirror. A second figure. In April 2016, a new cold case division at the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit reopened the Cedar Hollow investigation. Lead profiler Dr. Miriam Stokes began digitizing Holt's old VHS tapes, running them through modern enhancement software. On tape number 22, labeled Guest Number 9, the reflection of a woman appeared behind Holt. She wasn't a victim. She was operating the second camera. Stokes, archival interview. She looked calm, familiar, almost affectionate. That's when I realized Holt wasn't alone down there. He had help. DNA analysis of fingerprints recovered from the camcorder casing confirmed it. Female, mid-30s, matching familial relation to Holt's deceased wife, Linda. Her name was Eleanor Crane, Linda's younger sister. Property records revealed Eleanor had purchased land under an alias 2 miles east of Cedar Hollow Road, a stretch of forest along Route 19, once owned by the Holt family. Aerial scans showed a faint rectangular foundation buried beneath thick overgrowth. When agents excavated the site, they uncovered the second house. It was smaller than the original but built with the same design, identical blueprints, identical crawl tunnels. Inside, investigators found walls lined with mirrors. Every room reflected into another, creating endless loops of movement. And on the basement floor, carved into concrete, a single word: smile. 2 weeks after the discovery, a letter arrived at the Coldwater Sheriff's Office. It was unsigned, but the handwriting matched samples from Raymond Holt's personal journals. The note read, "She made me keep filming. She said they had to stay smiling. She said it was the only way to bring them back." In the corner of the envelope was a small photo, grainy and faded, but unmistakable. It showed Eleanor Crane, alive, standing beside a boy, Caleb Holt. Both were older than they should have been. On October 9, 2016, exactly 19 years after the fire, agents raided the property. What they found defied explanation. The interior was lined with outdated surveillance equipment, monitors looping static, VHS players running endlessly. And in the center of the basement was an old rocking chair, still moving. A camera was mounted opposite it, its red light blinking. Inside the camera, fresh tape, When agents played the footage, it showed a figure entering the frame. A woman, aged, frail, but unmistakably Eleanor Crane. She stares into the lens and whispers, "They never stopped smiling." Then, from the corner of the room, another voice answers, deep, cracked, familiar. "Neither did you." The screen cuts to static. Days later, cadaver dogs discovered a burial site behind the second house. There were 12 graves, arranged in a circle, each marked with a small mirror instead of a cross. DNA confirmed several of the missing victims from the original case. But 2 graves were empty. Raymond Holt, Eleanor Crane. Neither was ever recovered. Following the discovery, Coldwater became a ghost town of memory. The local government fenced off both sites and declared them restricted zones. But strange reports continued. Utility workers said they heard old film reels whirring beneath the soil. Truck drivers passing Route 19 at night claimed they saw a woman's face reflected in their mirrors, smiling too widely to be real. And occasionally, emergency dispatchers still receive calls from unknown numbers, each one silent except for faint breathing and a whisper, "He's in the walls." In 2021, the FBI released one final recovered clip to the public, a segment less than 30 seconds long. It shows a dark room, the faint hum of static. A man's hand adjusts the focus, and a single candle flickers to life. In its light, 2 figures sit side by side, Raymond and Eleanor, both smiling. Then the camera tilts down to the floor, revealing dozens of faces reflected in broken mirrors around them. And as the flame gutters out, Raymond's voice murmurs one last time, "Smile for the camera. You live as long as you smile." The screen fades to black. No further evidence has surfaced since that day. The case remains open, but no new sightings have been confirmed. Yet for the people of Coldwater, the fear never truly left. Because they know the truth, that the house, the tapes, the smiles weren't about death at all. They were about memory, and memory never dies. The house on Cedar Hollow Road. Case file closed. Unsolved. You live as long as you smile.